negotiation say?
Is this more buying or selling or both?
Yes. So negotiating is negotiating, okay? Because right now I'm negotiating with you guys, I'm getting your buy-in and talking back to me and having fun with it. And then we've got people in the office who have sold 5 million, 6 million, 8 million, 10 million. This is not a one-way conversation. I would love to hear your guys' tips. Is anybody that thinks I know everything? We got problems, okay? Because I don't know everything. And actually, not being in the field for the last 3.5 years, sometimes there might be something new or working that's working for everybody. Is that fair to say? Okay, so does everybody have a packet here? Because there's packets if you need them. Looks like Zakia just got here.
Keep some back here.
So there we go.
How about how to calm the deal back down?
Anybody else need one of these?
Meaning they're angry or they're scared or
Well,
they're fearful.
and whether it's my client, the other realtor, the other realtor's client, how to get back to a level.
Yeah. So one of the things you'll look in your packet, if you go to the back here, read the listing agent scenario, number 2. Read the listing agent scenario. After presenting the offer to the seller is disappointed and even offended. After all, this had been their family home and it was a great one. The seller desperately needs the money and the whole amount as soon as possible, and no other showings or offers have happened. Could that be a drama situation?
Yeah.
Could that be that kind of situation? So what are some best practices that you use to get people back focused on what's important? Clarissa, would you like to?
I would just remind them that, hey, we have an offer, so this is the start, because
Right.
don't say no about, this is the start of the negotiation here. This doesn't mean we're gonna end right here, this is the start. So I always remind them, hey, we have an offer,
Yeah.
best foot forward, now let's work with it and see what we can do.
Right. But this is seller. I mean, let's be clear about one thing. Somebody spent a half hour to come look at your house and then another 45 minutes to come up with this offer. I understand that you don't like the offer, but we're just starting.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not the calm in the storm, nobody else is going to be. I promise you that. Matt?
I mean, is there a high likelihood they didn't draw out their best offer right away?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's just the beginning of a negotiation. So what we're gonna come back to this is before we're done here today, because I want you guys to actually have a little bit of fun negotiating with each other and what you would do.
Since it's been a seller's market for so long,
Mhm.
so sellers now they can put anything out there and it's not in the best shape, but they can overprice it too.
Right.
How do we deal with that?
So that's the expectations, the setting the expectations, which is always part of the negotiation. I mean, Jennifer, would you agree with that?
That's the first part, pretty much.
Right.
But you've got to get through that agent first for them to even see the offer.
Right, which goes to this. Who are the 4 people that are in any negotiation in real estate?
Both agents.
Both agents,
Buyer.
the buyer and the seller. Do we need something else?
Do we need more?
Were we out of packets?
Did everybody, I get more prints?
We just keep some back.
There's a couple up there as well. So, yeah, there's 4 people in every transaction, and the negotiation starts the very first time you make contact with somebody. Is that fair to say? So we came up with, right here, so the first thing is the client and the customer. That's where the negotiation starts, literally from the time you pick up the phone. What's one of the first things you negotiate if you take a board call?
Getting their information.
Getting their information. What value are you going to offer me so that I will give you my information? The next thing you're gonna, especially for the new agents in here, listen to this, you're gonna negotiate whether you're just gonna be a popcorn realtor or a Pop-Tart realtor, and just pop up, go out and meet them right now. That's under negotiation from the moment you answer the phone. That's why we want you to learn the different scripts and bring them into the office, come into the office, see them, so that you can get to know them and make sure that, first of all, they're not a weirdo. Is that fair to say, Brenda? Because that happens every once in a while. And and then you go to there. So then you go to you negotiate the contract, and you negotiate the resolutions, and you negotiate the closing. Which one of these can you drop the ball on?
None.
None of them. That's exactly right. So somebody give me what's a really best practice for them when they first sit down with the client or the customer, and they're looking at negotiating. What's one of the first things we'll do? Are you going to be a transaction broker, or are you going to be an agent? Let's just say that I don't want to sign a buyer's agency agreement with you. How would you approach that? What's a best practice? We'll ask the agents.
Well, sometimes they have a little bit of difficulty understanding your part in the whole process.
Okay.
They think, you know, anybody can do it, this and that. One of the things when you go to a CPA or an attorney and you want work done, they will have you sign a letter of engagement. So I kind of formalize my approach by saying, just think of it this way. If you were going CPA, attorney, they would have you sign a letter of engagement. Think of the buyer's agency agreement as a letter of engagement.
Can I tag on that?
Before you tag on that, what are the two things that he did right there that are part of the education and negotiation process?
He's a professional.
Well, first of all, he's educating them, right? And then what did he do? He used a scenario from somewhere else in their life to relate it to the situation they're sitting in right now. That is if you don't get anything else from this class, that is a valuable tool to be aware of what other people do for a living or how they do it for a living, so that you can take those stories and put it into something, because now Steve and I relate. Okay, yeah, I've been to a lawyer before, I've been to a doctor before, so they get that. Bruce?
Well, I hate quacking after somebody else, but it's just a good point. I wrote down, be like a doctor, diagnose their sickness, their illness, and you do that by asking questions, why are you selling, what kind of price range are you looking to get from your home, how soon do you want to sell, where you're moving? There's a million questions, but let me give you an example. How tall are you?
Me?
Yeah.
5'7.5".
7.5, and how much do you weigh?
162.
162, and how long have you weighed that much?
Actually, 170 right now, but I'm going back to
Where do you get your hair cut?
my wife cuts my hair.
Who's in control of this conversation?
So far, you are,
Why?
because you're asking all the questions.
Right. So, closing, whether you're at the beginning or the end or wherever, anytime you feel out of control, Allison, begin to ask questions. But with what Jim said, if you be like a doctor and diagnose that, they'll tell you where they're sick. I have to go to Mississippi to see my granddaughter. She just got born and I got to move in 30 days. Bingo, you diagnose their illness. Now prescribe the cure. We need a great price at market value. We need to get a sign up immediately. We need to get some ads on, boom, boom, boom.
In this book, right, so thank you. In this book, Never Split the Difference, one of the things he was doing is he was talking about questions and leading, having some leading questions. And yet, when you read this book, one of the really cool things is you're not necessarily trying to create a web of an inescapable web where they have to sign the paper. Does that work very often, Jim?
Yeah.
I mean, it might work for the short term, but then they're calling Brendan and saying, I want out of this.
Yeah.
3 weeks later.
You gotta make them feel comfortable.
Exactly. Okay, so what else would you do, coming to the discussion of why you would sign the buyer's agent agreement or as a transaction broker rather than a transaction broker? Anybody?
Explain the fiduciary duties.
Again, going back to education. So coming from value is a negotiation tool, right? And so we learn our contracts and we learn what the fiduciary means and we honor that. And by doing so, you're setting yourself as apart from just every agent that's out there. Make sense? Raphael?
That's kind of what I was gonna say. You also have to know where your standards are. So if you're willing to take one client out without a buyer's agency agreement, then your scripts aren't good enough because you're not qualifying your buyers up front. So it's part of what's your standard, and part of negotiation is always to know when your walk-away point is. And if your walk-away point and your scripts are good enough that you feel like your walk-away point is, I did everything I can to get you to sign this piece of paper and now you're not understanding that I'm a professional, you have to decide, is that your walk away point or not?
Is it okay to walk away from customers?
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely.
But, by the same token, and I think Raphael probably would agree with this, if they don't wanna sign the first time, and you're talking to them on the phone, and they wanna see a house,
Yeah.
I wanna get with them.
Right.
I don't care if I sign anything then, but, I want them to see me, or my wife, whichever, and I want them to feel comfortable with me, and that's what sometimes will get the deal done.
So what you're using is, now you've gone to, he won the first round of the negotiation, he ain't signed. Okay, but then you're continuing the negotiation by offering your service.
You gotta keep you gotta keep connecting with them.
Exactly,
And eventually they'll,
exactly.
something.
Does everybody kind of follow on that?
Yeah.
Jennifer?
You know, forgive me, because I feel like we've had a shift with all of our internet accessibility and all of that, and back to the people wanting instant gratification. I have changed and shifted a lot from a whole lot of qualifying and gone to more like what Jim's done and made myself more accessible, kind of at the drop of a hat, which I know is not necessarily what we've endorsed through the years, but, you know, last year, I have to admit to you that I could pull in the driveway and somebody could call me about something, and I was just finishing up from an open house and scored 2 people in the same day because
Some of
I
it's
was
market
willing
driven, right?
to get and go, but the intent was, like with Jim, to build a relationship, and that's what I did. I put the bait out there, and then that opened the door to build a relationship with them.
Exactly. So is that enough on the buyer's agency or even the seller's agency? Any questions about that or thinking about that? We could go deep just on this subject for the next hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so let's go to the contract. What are the points that we negotiate in the contract? Everywhere there's a blank. Everywhere there's a blank, it is fully negotiable. Okay? So, as you go, that's why it's so important to learn your contracts and to really understand the ins and outs of the contract and to actually go back and read it every once in a while, because it walks you through the deals, and it also helps you to understand how you can tie different blanks together. Does everybody know what I'm saying? Like, anybody have an example about that? Like, can you tie the closing date and the price together?
Yes. Yeah,
Absolutely.
especially if they wanna get out of the house quickly.
Have you ever countered a deal where it says, okay, we'll take this if we can have it till here, but we'll take this if we can have it till here? I mean, that can happen. You can counter multiple things all at the same sort of a time. It's all negotiable. It's all part of the step, okay? And then, what are some examples of contract negotiations that would be good for you guys?
I use it a lot for like the closing date, especially if I'm trying to actually negotiate as well with my seller to get them to take the deal, because it's probably the only deal they're gonna get, like this one.
Right.
Say, hey, it might not be the price you want, but guess what? What happens if we make it so that you don't have to pay that April house payment? How much money is that gonna save you? What's your house payment, insurance,
Right.
mortgage, utilities? So let's take that. And is that the difference in the price? Hey, you're either gonna pay that or not, so, you know, or even with the other agent, like, hey, we
What
might
did
be able to
Clarissa
take
just
that.
do? What did she just walk out as an example for you guys? She created pain. And she can do that through, she's done a needs analysis on them at some point during the transaction, so she knows what's important to them. And then she went back and she created pain of, hey, listen, Jim, I understand you don't want to take this offer, and yet, what's it costing you? Going through that, right?
FOMO.
It's FOMO, fear of missing out. So that's one of my favorite things right there. And then when you go to the resolutions and the amendments, I mean, sometimes you're signing amendments right up to the day of closing, right? All of that is negotiation. You're closing. Right up to closing, sometimes you can have things going on. All of that is up to negotiation. So any thoughts on that, or am I missing someplace that negotiation, Steve? Anybody?
Every time you talk to them.
Every time you talk to them.
Chris, I'll say too, and I know that I need to get myself into this more, but knowing those forms, like you said, can really help you get the leg up, because there's times that we've got some properties that look distressed, or there's a scenario, and if you know there's little places in that contract that you can write to cover your folks, and you're really doing them a service, and especially if your agent on the other side does not know that contract, and I can tell you, I was up against a lady that sells 22 million consistently, and she missed some stuff I had in the contract, and she was mad because I didn't tell her up front that this is what the proposal was, instead of her reading the contract. But, yeah, but I'm just saying, I'm so glad that we've got somebody here that is constantly, I mean, we could not take too much learning with learning our contracts in contract class. We could do that every month and still learn something, I'm quite sure.
Let's go to a real life negotiation tip right here. Let's pretend you're the seller's agent and you had a highest and best offer, and you took the highest and best offer, and now it's the inspections. And they've come back and they've asked for 9 things that are gonna cost like $5,000 or $6,000, okay? But in the meantime, you've been on backup and you've gotten a couple other offers. One of them's even for more. How can you use the inspection resolution to get more money? What's the contract say?
You adjust the price of the house.
Just the price of the house? Because you're already under contract, but you got this backup offer that's even better sitting there waiting. Is there a clause in the contract that will allow you to get to that backup offer pretty quickly? Brenda's shaking her head.
Brenda's in the room, so none of us really want to answer the question.
Yeah.
Brenda, would you like to answer the question?
If the renegotiation period expires, the seller can cancel as soon as it happens. So 1201, whatever it is, the seller can send a cancellation. So if you're a buyer, you never want to let them get past that 5-day or whatever you set in the contract renegotiation period, because they can lose it like that.
One time in my career, I got bit by that. But we'll get back to you, And at 12:01 a.m. of day 6, I got an email that said, by the way, the inspection period is, we are rescinding the contract. And by the way, you can still get it though, because we had a backup offer for $7,000 more, so if your client wants to pay $7,000 more, we'll let you have it. And you know what? I called my client and I said, guess what? I just got beat big time. And it's gonna cost you $7,000 more. And he understood and it was worth it to him, so went on there. But that's never happened to me again. And yet you can use that in there. I mean, man up, tell the people what happened and kind of go there. Yet you can use it. It's in the contract. By the way, so now, if I ever get to day 5, and it's like 6 o'clock in the evening, by now I've already prepped my buyers what's going on. And I say that we, at 10 o'clock tonight, we might have to send in, and we'll just take it as is.
Yeah, be okay with the cancellation or take it as is.
Yep. Does that make sense? Are there any questions about that, or any clarifications you want about that?
Is there earnest money? If there's earnest money involved with that, it's already probably already been deposited, right?
So what does the contract say about the earnest money?
That all earnest money has to be deposited 5 days of Kansas.
Yeah, so the earnest money, right, so the earnest money is most likely already deposited, cashed, cleared, all that kind of stuff. And yet if the contract, if it falls out because of inspections, then everybody gets their earnest money back. Now, they've already spent money though, right?
For inspection.
Yeah, for inspections or anything else. Good question. Good question. So did you see the importance of understanding the contracts? Are there any other examples that I'm missing, Brenda, or anybody else in here that they got beat on a contract or learned something in there that's worked for them?
So do you have to show you actually have the contract? Like a higher?
No. No, there doesn't
You
have.
can just,
it
you can
could
take
just-
your chance, say.
You mean another offer?
I mean, yeah, not an offer, sorry.
It could just be that the seller says, I don't have any other offers, I don't have any other backup situations, but I'm not fixing anything. So it gets expired, and then you just say, okay, you just spent $600 on inspections and termites and everything else, and we're selling it as is, and we really mean it. I mean, it could be that kind of hard pull, that's willing to
Well,
walk
as
away
is
from the
doesn't
deal.
always mean as is too.
Nope.
Just don't roll over if there's some things out there that your people really want, and if they really like that house, I think we need to go that extra mile and put it out there and try to